Brig may seem easy, but she's got a lot of quirks and interactions that you need to know to succeed on Brig. Overwatch 2 has made her a whole new character with all new priorities and interactions without her stun. Let me go into detail because this hero is still a great pick for carrying, although it is much harder in Overwatch 2. Don't worry though, I got you. This is the ultimate Brig Guide Overwatch 2 style. Let's go through some priorities and abilities for Brig so you know the right mindset to be in. Brig is 10 times harder in Overwatch 2. Without the extra tank to take more damage, supports across the board are being focused more and are much more easily punished. I think this is okay for Brig as a good player. You can still get lots of value. It just takes the right amount of skill to get the high output. She almost feels less like a dive denier and more of a brawl hero, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but takes a little adjustment. She is still good against dive though. My number one priority to you is still, Brig is a defensive hero. You should never be in the front trying to tank for your team and going aggressive. This will just get you killed, especially with all the damage now in the game that's not going on to tanks. Brig thrives in an environment where she can play around hardcover like a wall and deny enemy space. Do not push forward, but stop oncoming aggression. Now these lines have blurred slightly in Overwatch 2 as you have more damage on this hero, but the priority stays the same. Don't frontline like a tank as Brig is killed too easily. My second priority is that Brig no longer counters tanks in Overwatch 2 and you should almost always avoid them. Pretty much never bash tanks unless you know you're gonna kill them. Instead, counter DPS and support by shutting them down with your big damage abilities and shield. I'll go further in depth with this later. Third priority is still the same. Inspire is not a priority. Lots of players think higher Inspire uptime equals better player, but this isn't true, especially if you're going out of position to try and activate Inspire when you just get killed anyway. Keep your positioning, and if someone gets too close, then you activate it. Keep it rolling. Fourth priority is to stay near walls, hardcover, and other heroes for helping them and you out. Brig is the strongest with others and can be that extra help to win you the game. Lastly, something you should be trying to do on support is ultimate track so that you can position and use your abilities correctly. For example, if they have blade, maybe try to save your bash so you can get away and save your whip so you can boop him. Or if the enemy team has grab, maybe save rally for after that because you probably aren't living in grab anyway. Alright, let's get into the meat and juice. Brig's bash no longer stuns enemies, but it has so many other buffs and great things about it. Shield bash now does 50 damage, moves a farther 12 meters now, activates Inspire, and is on a lower cooldown. Something super important to mention is Brig's bash is no longer hindered by shields and barriers, even Zarya's bubbles. This means you can bash directly through them without losing your momentum. Even the damage goes through as well, except for Zarya's bubbles. Well, without the stun, what do you do now with it? I'm thinking this is maybe a good breakdown of how to use the best. I'm more of a numbers guy, and I think this is the best breakdown that I can have for the best uses. Use Shield Bash 80% of the time for movement, 15% of the time for damage, and 5% of the time for Inspire. I'm getting this right out of the way. Don't bash tanks unless they are low and you can kill them. There's no point. Instead, shift this onto DPS and supports extra damage when they're in too deep. Movement is by far now the main reason for bash, and it is super reliable, and using it off cooldown is pretty commonplace to get away from the extra damage. Overwatch 2 is all poke and damage now, so Brig having this extra movement is super crucial to get into positions better and faster, especially up against tanks. Be patient when you use bash for movements around lots of enemies if you can, because it can be easily body blocked and then you go nowhere. When using bash for damage, use it as a finisher ability rather than an engage. So make it so that you can kill your target faster, and if you need your bash for something else, you can use it. But use bash for damage as a finisher ability. Okay, let's talk about other important abilities and how to use them as well. Brig's shield management is now so much more important than it was in Overwatch 1. You are shielding so much damage and abilities from the enemy team now, and her thin shield breaks super quickly. You have to be using the shield correctly so you can still be able to bash, because once that thing breaks, you are vulnerable for a whole 5 seconds. Be hyper aware how much damage your shield is taking and recharge it whenever possible. But I've got something to say. Please use your shield, hold it up every so often so you aren't taking unnecessary damage. Brig's whip shot may seem underpowered, but does 70 damage and can activate Inspire from a much safer range. The best Brigs hit the most whip shots, but be careful booping people to safety. I've got a video in the top right on how to do this. Also, a combo you do to get lots of damage to finish a target is when your target is very low, you do a normal primary fire, then immediately whip after the primary fire hits. This does some extra burst damage to kill your target faster rather than waiting for the flail to come back around. Bind your melee key on Brig to a mouse button instead of left click. This way you will never accidentally bash. Brig will swing her flail with your melee, and when your shield is up, you can still bash with left click. This is super helpful for keeping the buttons separate for abilities. Alright, remember when I said Brig is a defensive hero? Good, you should always remember that, except when you have Rally. Rally is a super powerful ultimate that can be used to take the much needed space and hold your ground against all the flankers and damage in the game. While worse in Overwatch 2 without the armor, can still be strong. You want to use Rally as selfishly as possible so you can get all the power from it. Try not to use Rally to save someone from large amounts of damage, but use it selfishly to push with your team and take space. Or use it to amplify your hard cover that you're playing on so the enemy team cannot commit onto you. Use Rally pushing into a fight, and a good sense I like to say is use Rally when you are about to be taking damage going into a fight. Rally gives little value if it is not being consistently destroyed by the enemy team and can be seen now by the damage mitigated stat. Using it mid-fight, when you get it to finish out the team fight, can also be really strong to carry your team to victory. Let's go into some matchups now that Brig's stun has been taken away. Earlier I said to avoid tanks as much as possible as Brig. In Overwatch 1, that was almost your whole job. Brig was great against tanks, but now tanks are actually tanky and you can't do what we've done before. The only tanks I would recommend actually looking at throughout the game are Ball and Doomfist. Brig can actually counter Doomfist as you can still counter bash his punch, and plus Brig can counter Ball still, and while it's harder with no hard CC, Whip is still good if you can aim. I wouldn't personally try to look at other tanks throughout the game as they just brush off whatever you throw at them and keep moving. Brig now has much more damage, and instead looking at squishies can be lethal to them. Brig still counters these heroes the most, including dive DPS like Genji, Tracer, Sombra, and even Reaper, but can get a lot of value against other squishies too if you're playing well with your shield management and in good position. Let me go into some hero specific matchups for easier times. Against Genji, always look at him, whip him, block his shots, and annoy him as much as possible. The threat you will create will cause him to play differently. Be careful against his blade though, and track Genji's ultimate to save bash. When he tries to blade you, bash away with your longer distance, then turn around while he is chasing you. Beware. As soon as you turn around, Genji's will deflect, causing you not to boop him. Try to save your whip until after if you can to actually boop him and live. Shield bash does go through deflect and does damage while also activating inspire, and that can be a great way to shut down Genji as well. Tracer is also a good character you should be harping over the entire game to shut down her angles and keep your team alive against her flanks. Let her shoot your shield a little. You want to distract the Tracer so she isn't doing damage onto your team. Bashing a Tracer is really strong and much easier and can force recall early. Try to whip shot her during the time when fighting, but always remember to be near hard cover so your shield doesn't take too much damage and so that you can refresh it. Tracers also like to blink around quickly and not shoot right before going a pulse bomb. Noticing this will come with time, but Tracer can have pulse bomb almost every other fight. When you see her doing this, just hold up your shield, don't try to whip her or throw out pack. Be ready for the pulse bomb to stick to your shield. If the pulse bomb lands on the outer portion of the shield, drop it, in case it's on the inside of your shield. If the pulse is stuck to the outside middle of your shield, keep your shield up, as if you drop it, it will stick to you. Tracer feels better to counter in Overwatch 2 in all honesty. Sombra can be annoying in your backline, but you can avoid being hacked very easily. Just hold up your shield in her general direction. If it's safe, bash Sombra in the face and force her translocate. Just constantly annoy Sombra with booping her and forcing her off with her high damage. Rallying an EMP can be strong, and while it is ideal to hide behind a wall and rally the second she EMPs, you could also do it after if you weren't in a good position to do so, as hacking abilities doesn't take as long. But remember, you do take more damage while hacked. I'll mention Reaper since I named him early. Just boop and bash away from him. Reaper really wants to be up close, so creating that distance is the best. Also bash away from his ultimate. I know lots of you are coming to me saying you're dying to tanks a lot, and fair, because I kind of am too. Let me tell you what to do up against tank heroes so you can live and carry. Against Winston, you can now bash directly through his shield, so bashing away from him is much more consistent. If you can boop his jump, that will help save you, but bash away from him and create as much distance as possible. Against Zarya, just keep your distance really at all times unless you know you can kill her. She can easily kill you, shred your shield, even use right clicks to damage you with your shield up. Just keep that distance. Diva has so much burst damage now, and she's basically just an inspire bot for me. She's pretty easy to hit with whip, but I would also avoid getting too close to her as her rocket missiles and fly impact damage completely destroy squishies. Save your bash for after she demechs, especially if she's using her diva bomb, because you could kill her very quickly before she's able to remech. There's kind of a trend here. Stay away from tanks. I've saved the easiest for last. Doom is pretty good to run into Brig. You can counter his punch, shield his ultimate, and boop him from doing anything. He doesn't have too much damage, but be careful, his charge punches stun you for a considerable amount of time. Always try to bash half a second earlier than he is going to punch, as it feels slightly delayed and allows early bashes more than late ones. I'm sad Wrecking Ball used to be Brig's #1 priority, and he is just not her #1 priority anymore in Overwatch 2. You can still do a lot against him as Brig though. Do the same combo as Overwatch 1. If he's going to pile drive you, look up to see where he lands, land, look back down straight ahead so you can block it correctly, but that's all you do. Don't whip him when he lands, just let him crawl away while getting a few smacks onto him. Also look for Ball and engages the fights and boop him from his position when rolling in to completely shut him down. Doing damage to mines also activates Inspire, but be careful, it takes 2 swings to kill one and they can easily kill you if you walk into them. Okay, now you know when to play Brig. Let's take a step back and look at a more holistic approach. Brig is almost like the off tank now in Overwatch 2. Positioning most of the time may not be next to your support, but it's also not quite next to your tank now. You have to play in this middle ground. Sometimes you need to be in the front helping your tank to shut down DPS off angles and damage, then there are times where you need to be helping your DPS and support in the back when they're being focused. Finding the right balance can be strong, but remember, Brig is much more punishable now and you don't want to be taking extra damage. Pack management can also be really important too. Don't throw these for fun. Actually heal people that need to be healed. You don't have to throw all 3 at once as it doesn't heal faster, only longer. Usually pack DPS and squishy heroes and let your other support heal your tank, but feel free to pack your tank as needed. Brig's healing may feel insignificant, but 1 pack along with Inspire will stack to 70 healing per second, which is relative to 1 on a shot and is enough to heal someone very significantly. Just don't spam these. Place them around to heroes who actually need healing, especially squishy heroes on your team, as they do a lot, so never spam all 3 at once. Against any DPS when you were low and need to live, but a Genji or DPS is on you, just keep your shield up for as long as possible and bash for Inspire and damage onto them. You don't even have to let your shield down and let the support passive trigger and take over. Against tanks, bash away from them and keep your distance. Be hyper aware of your shield management and always be recharging it, because without Brig's shield, she loses 250 HP and almost all of her movement and burst damage. Brig is still pretty hard to play against snipers and long-range DPS like Widow, Pharah, Hanzo, and others, so don't feel the need to play Brig if you feel like you're getting poked out too much and they're running a spam comp like Zarya, Sojourn, Widow, Ana, Zen. Yuck. You should be playing Brig around corners, rocket flailing, and shutting down abilities from the enemy team to get the most value. Always stand next to someone and or hard cover. Your pathing should never be in the open for too long. Use that map structure for something that could be unexpected. Brig can be good on any map, but I find she's really good at push. The much more close quarters brawl style of the match plays into Brig's strengths much more, but overall it mainly depends on the heroes your team and the enemy team are running. So use this knowledge and go into the depths of rank to climb. Here are some actual things you could do to get better. You can get significantly better by watching your own gameplay back and watching high-level streamers like myself to get the sense of what to do in certain situations. And the last and possibly most powerful tip I can give, which might sound simple but it's very true, and that is to look around. Looking around can give you massive game sense to where heroes are and what they're doing. For example, where is my other support for when they need help? Where is our tank pathing? Or where is that Genji so I can be ready to bash him and shut down his dive? If you have any questions or concerns, leave a comment down below or come by one of my Twitch streams at twitch.tv/HolyShiftKid. Thanks for watching.